again, my beautiful brothers and sisters of Earth. So today's topic has actually been brought to my attention by multiple friends now, and it is on the subject of substance abuse, and also what my view is on using different substances, and by this I mean mind-altering substances. Now, there are all kinds of different substances that cause a psychoactive response, but just for the sake of our topic today, I want to kind of focus on the ones you typically think of when you think of drugs. You know, alcohol, ecstasy, cocaine, marijuana, psilocybin, these sorts, LSD. So I've been asked from multiple friends now what my belief is about using these substances, and if I think that using these substances is bad or preventing one from reaching their full spiritual potential. Now, my answer to this isn't so cut and dry, because we all have different experiences with these kinds of drugs. You have some spiritual gurus out there who tell you that either using different things, such as maybe ayahuasca or psilocybin or cannabis even, are great for your spiritual evolvement because they help you tap into a certain part of your brain that is more connected with Source, that is more willing to understand things from your pure godlike perspective. So on one hand, I do agree with this. But of course, like all things, there are multiple dimensions to everything. On the other end, we have spiritual practitioners or family members or society who deems these drugs as bad, as being addictions that prevent you from really living out your life purpose. And I also agree with this. So for me, I used to have an issue with alcohol. I used alcohol very frequently, multiple times a week, and when I did, I would often binge drink. I almost felt like I had to use it in order to connect with my peers. Like I didn't know how to have fun or be creative or feel confident unless I used them. I often found myself in a lot of tricky situations, especially with alcohol in particular. In fact, my near-death experience has been with alcohol. I've been in numerous fights with people. I've not been able to control my emotions using alcohol. And oftentimes I used it as a crutch to try and connect more with my body and my sexuality, to the point where I didn't even know how to feel confident in my own body or having sex with others unless it was present. So from this perspective, alcohol was not a good thing. But on the other end of that, I've had some amazing spiritual experiences using different psychoactive substances. I know that when I first started exploring with cannabis and different hallucinogens, these were really a catalyst in my spiritual growth, because what these things do is change the way you perceive things. I was able to see through this matrix, through this fog that I had been living in for so long, that had blinded me so much. I was even able to use these substances to actually feel, communicate, and speak with Source and God. So I know that for many, that these different substances have really opened their mind to these new concepts that may have not been so clear before. So how can we exactly say that's a bad thing? So let's talk about then the word addiction. What is addiction? And what can we be addicted to? Well, we can be addicted to all kinds of things. I mean, aren't we all sort of addicted to our phones and technology? Aren't we all addicted to love, to food, to sex, to coffee? But what makes it specifically an addiction rather than just using these things? From my perspective, addiction is the need for connection. Numerous studies have proven that, for example, cigarette smokers often enjoy the habit not because of the nicotine activating something in their brain or activating their reward center, but also because there is a link between them and not being breastfed or not having enough oral stimulation as a child. Our mouths are a very sacred and connected place. That's why babies put everything in their mouth to try and explore the world around them. And that's why when we love someone or we're attracted to somebody, we want to kiss them. So because that need for connection is so inherent within us all, it's no wonder why certain things, especially that involve the mouth, are so appealing, such as drinking, such as smoking, such as eating. Since we all have our own very unique addictions, how do we determine then whether these addictions are good for us? For example, the addiction to food can be a very good thing. It can remind us that we need to take the time out of our day to nourish our bodies. But on the other end, if we rely on it to fulfill some emotional void within us, then naturally we're going to perceive that as a bad thing. So this is what I tell my friends when they ask if they should continue using a certain substance or not. When you use this substance and you think about this substance, do you feel that it is draining you or fulfilling you? I know if you're anything like me, it's probably a little bit combination of both. For example, with cannabis, for me, in many ways, it was very fulfilling. It helps spark my creativity in a lot of ways and really tap into that interconnectedness that I feel with all people and all things. And it makes me feel very peaceful, very relaxed. It stimulates my appetite when I need it, and it helps me go to sleep when I need that. But then looking on the other end, I know at least in the past, cannabis could also be used as a crutch. Sometimes I felt I had to use it in order to feel comfortable interacting socially. Or I felt that if I didn't use it, there was a creative block within me, and I felt that I couldn't create as good of art or as good of music. So, as you can see, it was kind of a balance of both. So I decided to try an experiment. I decided then I'm just going to be done with all substances, or at least what we could typically think of as substances, alcohol, cannabis, hallucinogens, coffee, all of these different things. I'm going to be done with them for a year. And so that's exactly what I did. And I learned a lot about myself that year. But here's the thing. There were times that I felt very disconnected from my peers. There were times where I wished that I could, easily have a glass of wine in a responsible way, or that I could use a little bit of cannabis just to relax or to meditate. And I came to the conclusion that by trying to be so perfect And by denying some of these natural impulses within me, that I was actually letting the drug take more control over me, not using it, than when I was actually using it. So that didn't feel right either. So then I had to ask, how do I find the fine balance between the two? You're questioning whether you should continue using certain substances, and you do come up with that list that has a pretty equal weight of positive benefits and negative benefits. See if there's a way that you can find a middle ground. Because as in all things, balance is really the key to enlightenment. Not being so convinced that this is automatically good or this is automatically bad. There is always gray area. And it's within that gray area that we really connect with who we truly are. Because once again, things are multidimensional. And it's not so black and white. So absolutely, if you notice that, say, for example, alcohol is destroying your life and destroying your relationships, then I think that's a sign right there that it's time to give it up. However, if fully giving it up doesn't seem right either, and it does bring some good benefit in your life, how can we find a balance? How can we use these substances in a place of wholeness rather than out of a feeling of a void within us? Because we're always whole. Once you learn to tap into your wholeness, then you trust yourself in the decisions you make. So now that I have a more balanced and open-minded approach, I actually notice that I use substances less and less. Which is funny because if I want to use it, it's there, and I know it's there. And on the rare occasion I do decide to use it, it's a much more wholesome and healing experience. For example, I maybe drink alcohol once or twice a year now, maybe use cannabis a few times as well, and other drugs if I need to explore something within me. You realize that you've really ascended as a being and evolved your relationship with substances when you ask yourself this. If someone came to my house right now and told me, Eryn, you can never use alcohol ever again, or you can never use cannabis again. And my response is, okay, I accept that. I understand, because whether with or without it, I'm whole. I feel like being able to answer in that way is a true testament of a healed relationship with these things. If you feel as though your life would be lacking without them, then maybe it's time to go without for a while. To realize that, hey, maybe instead of advancing me and healing me, using the substance is actually draining me. It's preventing me from reaching my full infinite potential as is. Drugs are supposed to be a tool. They're supposed to be our teacher. But once they start to feel like a crutch, that's when we have to question our actions and question our relationships with it. This is like our relationship with anybody. That these other people should enrich your life and excite you, but by no means should you feel like your self-worth relies on that connection with them. So even though I do rarely use different psychoactive substances these days, it does not mean that that is the right choice for you. Maybe your right choice is completely abstaining and experiencing sobriety for a little while. Or maybe it's using them more frequently. But either way, I just wish this for you. I wish that when you decide to engage with these different drugs, that you are fully present in the experience, that you are conscious, that when you go into it, your intent is to explore yourself more, to get to know more of who you are rather than hiding from it. Thank you so much for joining me once again, and let me know what your thoughts are on this subject. I know that this can be kind of a taboo thing to talk about, and I know myself personally, I've been on both ends of the spectrum of being like, woohoo, do whatever you want, party all the time, and also, oh, all drugs are bad, you can't reach spiritual enlightenment unless you're in sobriety all the time. So, again, I'd like to know from you, what are your views on it? Is there a healthy way to use substances to connect more with who we are?